With the 2023 NFL season nearly upon us, it was starting to see who's going to win, who's going to lose, who's going to hoist that Jerome Barty at the end of the season. It's going to be the Vikings one time up. But also, coaching-wise, who's going to get fired? And there's always a thing. It's like, obviously, there's winners, obviously, there's losers, and obviously teams like to make changes because the NFL is one of the greatest leagues, if not the greatest, in terms of parity. Anyone can win. All that stuff. And, it does suck when coaches and coaching staffs are let go, but it is the business. And also, I mean, generally NFL coaches get at least 2 years, usually 3, to implement their scheme and their system and get things right. I mean, like Premier League managers, the average tenure is 14 months. And Jose Mourinho has been fired 17,000 times. So, whatever. But there are a significant number of coaches. Like, we identified 13 that may be on the hot seat heading into the season, and we wanted to run through and explain our reasoning. First up, Belichick. Wow. Now, before you say, wow, what's going to happen here? I actually think that there's always been a little bit of tension between Kraft and Belichick, and that's what happens when your organization has success. A lot of people are concerned about who gets the credit. Was it Brady? Was it Belichick? Was it Robert Kraft, who was a great owner? But the lack of success as of late, I think that spoiled Patriots fans are starting to realize that maybe life after Tom Brady ain't all that great. And yeah, Belichick's won 6 Super Bowls, but what have the Patriots really done since Brady left? Not a whole lot. And even though that defense is legit, if Mac Jones can't get it going this year with Bill O'Brien, I don't know what's going to happen. And I don't think that they would fire Belichick midseason. And I also don't think that they would fire him. I think it would be a very classy, very respectful, conscious uncoupling. But even though Belichick's in his 70s, I don't think that he would quit. Like, I don't think that. I think immediately he would just look for another job and just do his Belichick thing. Next up, number 12. Dan Campbell. Now, this is going to surprise a lot of people because Dan Campbell and the Lions are the cat's ass right now. But if you think about it, even though they finished up 8-9 last year, they started out 1-6, and in Campbell's first year after taking over from Matt Patricia, they went 3-14-1. So he is 12-21-1 during his tenure there in Detroit. And if they don't live up to expectations, like say the Lions don't run away with the NFC North, which the media think they're going to do, say they don't make the playoffs, which the media thinks they're going to do, who's going to be the blame? Who's going to be to blame? And, GM Brad Holmes, I think he's done a phenomenal job acquiring talent. Could it be a spot where they have the talent, but they don't have the leadership? Even though Dan Campbell, I mean, their players obviously want to run through a brick wall for him. I would too. He gets you fired up. But is he the tactician that you need as a head coach? I don't know. But I think they could come to the front, like if the Lions have a very mediocre season yet again this year. Next up, number 11. Mike McCarthy. Now, I feel like Mike McCarthy is always perpetually being fired, but I feel like he's in a good spot in Dallas because Jerry likes a head coach he can control, and McCarthy does not care. But they went 12-5 last year, won a road playoff game for the first time since like the freaking 90s, man. But McCarthy is 30-20 as head coach of the Cowboys, but Jerry just wants to push for a Super Bowl one time, and if McCarthy isn't making that progress, I mean, maybe Jerry's deluded himself into thinking that he has a Super Bowl caliber team and a Super Bowl caliber quarterback in Dak Prescott. I do not believe that. But also, I mean, they do have CeeDee Lamb. I think Tony Pollard is primed to bust out now that he's going to get all the work, but we'll see. I think McCarthy's perpetually on the hot seat, but also, I mean, Jerry Jones, for all his tough talk as an owner, like wanting results, like he employed Jason Garrett for 17,000 years, seems like it, but whatever. Next up, number 10. Arthur Smith of the Falcons. So 7-10 last year, and he's 14-20 through his first 2 seasons. And he's seen as this offensive wunderkind, but the Falcons' offense has been whatever, minus the running game. And they've invested significant draft capital into that side of the ball. You look at Kyle Pitts, you look at Drake London, you look at Bergeron, you look at Desmond Ridder, and if the offense doesn't get off the schneid this year, I think that this could be a 3-and-done for Arthur Smith. Next up, number 9, Kevin Stefanski. This one hurts. So our guy, Kevin Stefanski of the Browns, 7-10 last year. Kind of a weird season where you traded everything for Deshaun. You paid Deshaun a big-time guaranteed contract, and then he was suspended for the first 11 games of the year. But 26-24 for his first 3 seasons. 2020 Coach of the Year. Took the Browns to the playoffs. Won a playoff game even though he didn't technically coach because of the Rona. But I believe Stefanski. I believe in him as a leader. I believe in him as an offensive guru. I think that him and Deshaun, if they get on the same page, this offense could be pretty damn legit. Maybe Amari Cooper has a nice comeback season. Defensively, I think that there's a lot to be improved upon. But I think so. Jimmy Haslam is who people think that Jerry Jones is in terms of firing his GMs, firing his coaches, etc. But I think that I do think that Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski are both on the hot seat headed into 2023. Next up, number 8. Matt Eberflus of the Bears, the IKEA toilet. Now, I understand that Eberflus's first season was last year. The Bears went 3-14, the worst record in the National Football League. And Eberflus coming over from the Colts, like he was seen as this defensive mastermind, a guy who's going to take the Bears from their vaunted 3-4 to a 4-3, and it didn't work out. They're 32nd in points allowed. There's 32 teams in the league, also 29th in yards, and I do think that Justin Fields needs an offensive-minded head coach, and I always believe in that. Where if you have a young quarterback, just having them sync up with an offensive-minded head coach, where there's not going to be turnover in the coaching staff, I think that's so key for him. And is Eberflus, a defensive coach, going to sync up with Justin Fields long term? I don't know. Or is Eberflus going to be a scapegoat? Like, say the Bears have a very poopy season yet again. Maybe DJ Moore doesn't work out. Maybe the offensive line is in shambles again. Maybe the defense is still garbage. And Ryan Poles, his feet to the fire. Maybe they just throw Eberflus under the bus as a scapegoat. So it is a possibility. Next up, number 7. Dennis Allen of the Saints. So Dennis Allen never seemed like a legitimate head coach to me. It always felt like he's a placeholder after Sean Payton sort of left him on short notice, and then Sean Payton took the Broncos job, whatever. But 7-10 last year. Defense is solid, and Dennis Allen is a defensive guy, but Saints offense listless, to say the least. And I don't think that Derek Carr is going to be your savior. I don't think that expecting Michael Thomas to be healthy for the first time in 9 years is going to be the answer either. So I think that, I think that he was always just sort of a placeholder. I think that he's going to be gone after this year if he makes it through the season. Next up, number 6. Vrabel. There we go. Mike Vrabel of the Titans. Now, again, it seems a little bit surprising, but it's one of those don't let good be the enemy of great situations. Now, with the Titans last year, they did fire John Robinson midseason. They did let go of their offense coordinator as well. So it could be, with the GM John Robinson, it could have been a bit of a power struggle thing, and Vrabel won out in that situation. But I don't know if it's going to be enough. And he's won the division twice. He's won the playoffs 3 times. He was former coach of the year. But is that going to be good enough? He is 48-34 during his tenure in Tennessee. But uncertainty at the quarterback position. Tannehill is not the answer long term. Malik Willis, they drafted him in the 3rd round. He ain't it, as well as they spent a 2nd rounder on Will Levis. So I don't know, like the way that Vrabel wants to play. Derrick Henry can't play forever. The defense is sort of hot and cold, hit or miss. But Vrabel is very similar to Zimmer, where tough, old school, wants to play defense, wants to run the ball, and is good. But can he be great? That's the question with Vrabel, and we're going to get some answers this year. Next up, number 5, Josh McDaniels of the Raiders. So Josh McDaniels finally took another job. Hey, remember when he was supposed to take the Colts job? But 2nd stint as a head coach, formerly of the Broncos, but went 6-11. Just a disaster year last year. And I understand they hitched the wagons to Jimmy G. I don't know if Jimmy G is going to pass a physical. I don't know if Jimmy Garoppolo is going to play a down of football this year for the Raiders. But there's consternation with Josh Jacobs, last year's breakout candidate. Tagged him. He hasn't signed it. Is he going to be there? Who knows? And you have Devontae Adams. You're wasting the bottom end of his career. And defensively, you got some nice players in Crosby and whatnot. But is it going to be enough? I don't know. And I think this could be a part and parcel thing where if the Patriots do move on from Belichick this offseason, maybe McDaniels takes over in New England. Next up, number 4, Todd Bowles. So Todd took over after B.A. retired, but went 8-9 last year. Won the division, but lost the home playoff game. I think that the Buccaneers are clearly tanking. I think that it is clearly a spot where they're going to be in the Caleb Williams and Drake May sweepstakes. They're starting freaking Baker Mayfield. Let's be honest here. And Todd, Todd. I do think Bowles is going to be let go after this season. Next up, number 3. Ron Rivera of the Commies. So 8-1 last year, 22-27-1 in the DMV area overall. And I do like Riverboat Ron. I think he is one of the classiest men and coaches in this league. And, I mean, he's won the division before, made the playoffs with Taylor Heineke under center. But they are going to have new owners. They're probably going to have a new quarterback. I don't know if Sam Howell is going to work out. So I think that there's going to be a complete reboot there in D.C. Lastly, 2 more to go. Number 2 coach who enters the season on the hot seat, Brandon Staley. Now, I understand what you're saying. Is like, well, the Chargers have been successful, but there's a lot of things going on. So, yes, they were 10-7 last year. Brandon Staley is 19-15 overall over his first 2 years. They did have that playoff loss where they collapsed in Duval against the Jaguars, as well as 2021. Remember, Brandon Staley and the Chargers would have made the playoffs with a tie, except they screwed things up the last week of the regular season against the Raiders, allowing the Steelers to sneak into the playoffs. So that's a mark against him. And also the dynamic of a defensive head coach with a young quarterback. I mean, Justin Herbert is a rising star in this league. If Brandon Staley was fired, the Chargers gig would automatically become one of the most coveted positions for all offensive-minded head coaches. And Staley's supposed to be this defensive guru, but last year the Chargers' defense was bottom third of the league. So I think that this is, if the Chargers fail to live up to expectations, I think this is clearly a spot where a change is going to be made. And lastly, coach number 1 entering on the hot seat, our guy Rob Saleh, coaching down the wing. So Jets went 7-10 last year. The offense averaged like 1.3 inches per play. Zach Wilson didn't work out, but now we have Aaron Rodgers. He spent a lot of money for Alan Lazard and Randall Cobb and Jordy Nelson. But there's going to be a lot of pressure, and I think that if the Jets start out slow in the New York media market, I think that this team is going to get torn apart. I think Rob Saleh is going to get thrown under the bus. I think they're clearly going to side with Rodgers. Rodgers may quit midseason. I mean, if this Jets team starts out 2-5, I think that's it. That's a wrap. I think Rob Saleh could be fired in season. Also, I think Joe Douglas, their GM, could be on thin ice as well. So I think that's we'll see it on Hard Knocks when the Jets were forced to do it, but I do think that Rob Saleh is entering the season clearly on the hot seat. But that's it. Let's take a look at the 13 coaches entering the season on the hot seat and could be fired. You fired. Let us know your thoughts and our thoughts in the comment section below. Subscribe for daily Vikings takes. Want to support the work? Put a little something in the Venmo. But till next time, Skol, production value.